Welcome to the Subconscious Mind Mastery Podcast. Thomas Miller, thank you for joining us here. I'm going to do one more in this little sequence, and then we're going to switch off of this and do some other stuff. But I had one other thought that I think will be very positive for you wherever you are. The last two episodes, 419, 420, this one, 421, on catching this wave that might be blowing in the wind of this spiritual revival or renaissance or this anticipation of everything that everybody's been talking about. Something is going on, and some of us want to tune into it. And I mentioned in the last couple of episodes that a lot of this has been spawned by or mostly connected by the thing that people are saying that they are feeling the most has come through music that we've been hearing over the last couple of weeks here in September of 2025. Of course, all this hinged around, triggered by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But music, as we heard, like Michelle Blood brought this right into our podcast when she told us the story about how she reprogrammed her reality after a traffic accident by singing. Now, she was in a band, and that helped, but some of us. But what I'm going to throw down today are some suggestions and then a lot of links in the show notes to different music that you might consider. So I'm giving you three different types of music. We'll talk about that as we get toward the end, but a lot of links in the notes for you. But music will definitely help you reprogram your subconscious mind, wherever you are, wherever you want to go. Now, as far as this spiritual wave that's blowing through, I realize some are not interested, some are. I am. I've heard from a lot of you who are. We've had good responses for some in our Facebook group, but some are just like, I'll pass, and that's fine. If it's not the time, it's not the time. And this may or may not hold, but while it's there, it's really been pretty cool. And the idea for me is that there are so many people that are focused on this right now. So the energy globally, see that when we were doing Level Up, we were a few people, we were a couple of dozen people that were getting together and we were doing our part, but it didn't have that big macro sweep of the world. Boy, I mean, this thing is big. So there are a lot of voices being raised to the heavens. There are lots of arms being raised up into the air, and that makes a big difference. It does. There was a guy in the broadcasting area that I looked up to who was incredibly successful in the Dallas-Fort Worth radio market back in the 80s and 90s. He had a gift. He was a Virgo, but he could rally people around and just get them moving in a direction, and he was an incredible marketer and promoter and everything. And his sidekick, the co-host in the morning, one of the co-hosts he had, Susie Humphreys, she would say that his greatest ability was not to create a parade, but to recognize when a parade was forming and get out in front of it. That's a good way to go. Well, a parade has formed, and the thing is are we going to get out there and run with it, or are we going to watch it go by? So because this is talking about spirituality, and as we've mentioned in the last couple of episodes, because it is one flavor of spirituality that is being focused right now, I just thought, music is the key to set all of that stuff aside. So if there are past wounds in your life from particular flavors of spirituality, music is a really good way to just bypass that. Now, since Christian music has been the catalyst, I wanted to just address a couple of things around that first, in case you choose to use that as a portal. And there are some links to some Christian songs as well as some other songs. So don't worry if it's not just that. But if you would like to explore the Christian songs, think about it from this perspective. Some of these are singing scriptures, singing verses. We mentioned the blessing. Well, the blessing was a priestly blessing from the Old Testament. Another one you can find are the Psalms. So we mentioned this last time. The Psalms were written to be sung, typically by a leader or the congregation exchange with the leader, where the leader would sing and then the congregation would sing and they go back and forth. And that's still done today, obviously, in some churches. Also, there's this whole idea of chanting, and that was definitely done all the way back. You can go back to the Levitical choirs. In fact, that verse, the blessing, probably was chanted. And there was responsive chanting too, the leader and the congregation. So some of the links I provided are chanting links. because there's something about that repetition that locks all of this into our subconscious. And I know today music evolves a lot, and some of this may or may not relate, but if you want to catch this wave, it is an excellent portal to that higher vibration that's going on. And that is not the religious vibration like we've been discussing. It is the spiritual connection to higher source. That's the goal of this. That's what we're going for, is taking our soul up to as high of a connection to that as we can. In fact, this is all based on levels of energy. The book that I narrated, the audio book that I narrated for Fred Dodson, that still is one of his top best sellers and still changes people's lives. It puts all of this on a scale, and God is at 1,000. Just an arbitrary number, but it gets it up there. And then the closest human number that Fred put on his scale that we can achieve in our human bodies is, let's say, a 600 or even up to maybe 700s kind of level. But there's that gap. And a typical human, by the way, just to put this in scale, the folks at work, the folks you associate with, your friends, happy hour crowd, whatever, they're probably in the 200s and 300s. So that's what I'm saying, is this is an exercise of transcending the normal, taking your soul up to the highest levels of the ethereal. To me, that's what's going on here. And in Kundalini and the Krishna Das stuff that I'm going to send, that I've put the links in, that is repeated over and over and over. But back to this theme of talking about the Psalms, a lot of these, so the way that it was done back then were different ways of responsive singing back and forth. Today, the modern cantor in synagogues is central to worship still. So I would go back to repetition, wherever you can repeat these and get them really going in your mind. And I know some of these songs, many of you have reached out and you've said, this song is stuck in my mind. That's good. That's great. Play it. I play that blessing song when I get up in the morning, and I play it before I go to bed. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen, 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 amen. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. That's it. Those are the lyrics. They added 2 paragraphs to that. May his presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you. He is with you. In the morning, in the evening, in your coming, in your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you. He is for you. Amen, amen, amen. Now, what's wrong with that? That's absolutely beautiful. I'm getting touched right now. That's the kind of stuff you want. Now, when I found Krishna Das, that was so good too, because he was the guy that left Blue Oyster Cult back in the late 60s, early 70s. He was one of the co-founders, and then he took off for India. And he met Neem Karoli Baba, that incredible, powerful guru in India, and they chanted. And he would have them chanting all day, hours and hours and hours of chanting. Now, the norm is somewhere in between. I mean, we don't need to do that. But the idea is that that was how that was used to reprogram. So there are also some links toward that and some Kundalini music in there that I love. There are some of Krishna Das's and then a couple of others. But what this does, I think, is it brings us into those high vibrations. When we tune out when we get as much out of our head as we can, and we get into those vibrations, then we can ride this wave that's going on. And while it is, say this too, while it is a wonderful state to attain, that high energy connection with God, for one, it doesn't last for long, so it does pull back down quite quickly. That's humanity, because you'll look at your phone and you'll get back into the day. But while it is there, it is such a beautiful soul experience, and it's not much good for getting anything done around here. It's like nobody else is going to be where you are. Hello! It's like we have to get back down here to operate. But it is a beautiful thing to be able to access both realms. And I just think that the veil is thinner now to the portal to the other realm, the higher levels. So I hope you'll play with this, and you can see what connects for you. And then another step that you could take this further is to do like Michelle and kind of weave some of your own words and intentions into those songs. Use them as the base, but then to chant or sing or pound out with drums. I put some drums in there too, that you can do all of that to be using your own manifestations. And I just think, let's try it, because I think it's a really powerful time. And that means that manifestations could probably happen faster, easier, quicker. And if nothing else, that elevation of our own soul to those higher realms can take place more easily too. And that's always wonderful when that happens. So the links are in the show notes. Now I'll tell you the other place that I'll put them. I'll put them in one of the community posts on our new website. So I've consolidated 3 websites into one, funastrology.com, subconsciousmindmastery.com. It's been forwarded for some time. And then this other little billboard website that I had are all now hightimelineliving.com. If it doesn't call right up for you, put a www dot in front of it, and it will. But we have a free community thing in there, so it's kind of like, it's like a forum. It's not our Facebook group. We're still keeping the Facebook group. We still have our Discord for the astrology folks, but we wanted something under this umbrella, and we're developing, and it's getting a little bit better. But if you go to the general posts in there and subscribe to that, it's free, then I will put this in there, and we'll call it High Timeline Vibe Music, okay? The High Timeline Vibe Music. And I'll put podcast 421 as well. So show notes for the audio folks, description for the YouTube folks, or come over to the new website and get in the community thing and you can get it there. So happy chanting, and I hope that this helps. Enjoy the journey. I'm Thomas Miller. We'll do some other stuff next. Thanks for listening to this little sequence of 3, and I hope it helps.